Hello and welcome to this new episode of Free Science 365. Today, we're going to continue our discussion on the topic of intelligence. In our last episode, we talked about how the Binet-Simon scale was commercialized in the form of Stanford Binet test and how Lewis Terman's genetic study of genius made it clear that his hypothesis that higher IQ children would go on to become successful people in their future proved wrong. So what's crystal clear is that IQ is not the true indicator of someone's intelligence, and it's not an indicator of a person's future success. So the question then arises, what is true intelligence? Also, is there only a single entity called intelligence, or do we have multiple intelligences? In 1983, Howard Gardner proposed in his book Frames of Mind that there are 7 distinct kinds of intelligences: linguistic, logical mathematical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and musical. Later, he added one more intelligence, natural intelligence. And recently, he enlisted 2 more intelligences in his list: pedagogical intelligence and existential intelligence. So let's look at them one by one, in no particular order, definitely not in the order of superiority. The first intelligence is what we call the logical mathematical intelligence, where a person has an extraordinary ability of understanding matters related to logical and mathematical nature, and they can find patterns that help them understand a problem and solve a problem, or find a better way of solving a problem. Some good examples of people who possess very good logical mathematical intelligence are Bill Gates, off the top of my head, and on the other side of the spectrum, Chris Langan. Second, linguistic intelligence. People with linguistic intelligence can look at words and find connections and patterns where they can use the language much more effectively than the average person on the street. Some good examples are Tolstoy, Rabindranath Tagore, the first Nobel Prize winner from Asia. Now, the reason I describe these first is because the proverbial IQ test attempts to measure only these 2 types of intelligences. As long as you are in a school or university, these 2 types of intelligences account for your success. But outside of the campus, these 2 intelligences are not much use only by themselves. That's where our next 2 intelligences come into play. Third, let's talk about interpersonal intelligence, where a person has this exceptional ability of understanding the emotions of people around them and finding patterns in people's behavior, which helps them relate to people more effectively, deeply, and in a shorter period of time than average people. Gandhi is a very good example of this kind of intelligence. Fourth is intrapersonal intelligence. People who possess interpersonal intelligence have this super ability of understanding their own emotions and responses at a very deep level. They have this ability of finding patterns in their own behavior and emotions at such a deeper level that they can manage and control their own emotions in a much better way than average people. Buddha and John Lennon are good examples of people who possess very high intrapersonal intelligence. Now, why did I describe these together? Because these 2 intelligences combined together can be of the greatest help to you in real life, where you deal with other people, get influenced by other people, get influenced by new ideas, and influence others. The 5th intelligence that Gardner describes is musical intelligence, where a person can understand musical instruments and musical notes and can invent patterns of musical notes that translate into beautiful symphonies. Some good examples of people with musical intelligence are Beethoven and Louis Armstrong. 6th is bodily kinesthetic intelligence, where a person can move their body so accurately and naturally that they understand the moves and patterns of these movements, and it usually results in an awe-inspiring outcome such as a dance or an athletic feat. Some great examples are Martha Graham and Anna Pavlova. 7th is spatial intelligence, which is the ability of understanding the space around us and changes in the space. It can be a narrow space such as a chessboard or a wider space such as the space around us. Some good examples of people who possess very good spatial intelligence are Gary Kasparov and the fictional but fantastic Forrest Gump. Eighth is natural intelligence. It's the intelligence a person possesses which enables them to look at nature and understand it in ways that normal people can't, finding patterns within nature that others can't find. For example, Charles Darwin, he found the pattern of organic evolution which fundamentally changed our understanding of our world. Jane Goodall is another good example. Ninth is pedagogical intelligence, where a person has this acute sense of making other people understand things. They are very good at finding patterns of how people learn things. They are very good at drawing analogies, for example. They are very good at finding learning patterns of others, and that makes them very good at explaining complex ideas into simple to understand ideas. Richard Feynman and Albert Einstein are some good examples of people who possess very good pedagogical intelligence. The 10th one is what you call existential intelligence. People who possess existential intelligence are very good at asking questions of existential nature, such as why do we exist? What happens after we die? What happens when we face moral dilemmas? Finding patterns that can help answer or address these questions in a complex world that we live in. Philosophers such as Socrates are good examples of people with this kind of intelligence. It's possible that a mix of these intelligence can exist together. A person who is very good at, for example, musical intelligence as well as pedagogical intelligence can be a great music teacher. It's possible for a person to possess two or more than two of these intelligences at the same time. Now, wait a second. Do you see a pattern there? In all of these 10 intelligences that Howard Gardner explains, I can see a common thread. In each of these intelligences, the individual has an extraordinary ability of observing, finding patterns, and giving some kind of output in a useful way. So I guess we can summarize intelligence as this exceptional and amazing ability to, number one, observe and understand a niche area intuitively. Number two, originate patterns in the observed niche. And number third, output something that is considered useful or valuable in that particular niche. Observe, originate, output. O. So let's call it our triple O. Now, if each of our 10 intelligences is simply this: extraordinary observation, extraordinary origination, and extraordinary output, then naturally the question arises, is a particular intelligence natural or can it be taught? Can intuition be taught or is it inborn? So first, let's talk about logical mathematical intelligence and linguistic intelligence. Is it possible to take an average person with an IQ of 100 and train them to become a high IQ person with, let's say, an exceptional IQ of 133? I personally think we can. In northern India, there's a city called Kota, where hundreds of coaching institutes make promises of getting your child into IITs, the most prestigious engineering schools in India. In China, in Mao Tan-chang, students are coached to ace the Gaokao, arguably the toughest exam in the world. Similarly, in Japan, there are juku or cram schools, especially around the stations of major cities, that claim to help the average student ace the university entrance exams. Not only that, I found that there are online coaches that claim to help you do better in your Mensa and other IQ tests. That's kind of funny. I remember the scene from the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, where Will Smith's character solves a Rubik's Cube in a taxi and he impresses his future employer with his intelligence because he's able to solve this Rubik's Cube in no time. Personally, I know people who got Rubik's Cube and they couldn't solve it, but now they can do it in less than 5 minutes. How? Just because they practiced hard on it. They took tutorials, they went online to find shortcuts, they learned those shortcuts and practice, and they kept practicing on it till they mastered it. So yes, by training your brain, you can become better at linguistic and logical mathematical intelligence. How about interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligence? There's this whole industry of self-help books and motivational speakers that caters to the interpersonal intelligence as well as the intrapersonal intelligence improvement aspects. To improve your interpersonal intelligence, you can go to the self-help section of any bookstore and read books from the famous writers, right from Dale Carnegie to Napoleon Hill to Ellen Pease to Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson. The list goes on. For intrapersonal intelligence, you have hundreds of writers, and also there are all types of courses ranging from Himalayan retreat to self-mastery to inner engineering programs that claim to improve your intrapersonal intelligence. Then we have dance schools, music schools, chess schools, and the like that claim to help you improve on the intelligence that you want to improve on. So yes, we can say that to a degree, most intelligences can be improved upon. In his book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell argues that if an individual works hard at anything for 10,000 hours, they become genius at that thing. Although his claim is controversial, it nevertheless drives home the Eastern belief that by practicing hard, you can get better at almost anything. When it comes to intelligence or intelligences, basically your inborn talent doesn't matter much. Your natural abilities don't matter much. Your intrinsic essence, as Aristotle would have said, doesn't matter much. Especially in today's world of diffusion of technology, thanks to Moore's law, democratized literacy, thanks to Gutenberg, and affordable access to intelligent coaches or machines that can teach us how to acquire an intelligence faster, better, and easier than any generation before us. So, how do you acquire intelligence in a specific area? I think you need to fulfill 3 conditions. First, you should have an intrinsic drive in becoming more intelligent in your specific niche. Second, you should possess high degrees of grit. You should have this undying spirit of not giving up on your dream, of becoming more intelligent, come what may. And third, you should practice with a razor-sharp focus on what I call the triple O's: observation, origination, and output. If you are intuitively not good at observing and understanding the basic patterns of your niche area, find a book, a human coach, a software program, or anything that can help you observe and understand the basic patterns. Practice on your first O, i.e. observation, until it becomes intuitive enough. This step is very important because it saves you time and effort in your second and third steps. Once you are good at observing the basics and understanding the basic patterns, you don't need to reinvent the wheel in our second step, i.e. the second O, originate patterns that have not been invented or discovered yet. You already have a good idea about what has already been done. Now, you can practice on finding new original patterns. Often, that requires either looking into a new direction within your niche or combining an existing set of patterns with something new, something from outside of your niche. This is where you practice to become more creative. The final step, our third O, is output. Intelligence is intelligence only if it has a useful or valuable output. A genius is not a genius until they have produced a new pattern or style of doing things visible to others. A genius mathematician is as ordinary as the next man until they produced a new proof or a new way of proving something in their respective field. All 3 of our O's, i.e. the observe stage, the originate stage, and the output stage, need practice. As the old adage goes, practice makes perfect. But that begs the question, why is it practice that makes perfect? Why do we need to undergo the seemingly unending, monotonous, repetitive, and oftentimes boring practice to gain intelligence? Why can't we just imagine ourselves as geniuses in a certain area and just become geniuses? It's common wisdom that once you make your mind up to do something, change happens. So why can't we simply think that we are geniuses and then just become geniuses? Why practice? Now, one common thing among all these 10 intelligences is the brain-body coordination. You need to move your eyes, your hands, your legs, your body. You need to move something in your body in order to improve your intelligence via the triple O process: observe, originate, and output. Let's see what's going on in the brain. Our brain has two kinds of neural tissue: white matter and gray matter. The gray matter is composed of neurons or nerve cells and terminals where neurons can connect to each other. As neurons are grayish in color, this part of the brain is called gray matter. The white matter, first, why is it called white matter? Well, it's mostly made up of fat and nerve fibers called axons. And just like an electric wire has a plastic covering on it, an axon has a covering on it made from a fatty thing called myelin. Myelin is white in color, so this part of the brain is called white matter. Now, how does practice change things in our brain? As we know now, the axons in the white matter are covered with myelin. So what practice does is it increases the layers of myelin around the axons. And just like an electric wire, a thicker myelin layer provides better insulation around the axon chain. This results in less energy loss and better transfer of electrical signals from your brain to your muscles. Regular practice results in faster and more efficient neural pathways. As you practice your first O, i.e. observe, the neural pathways that enable the observe and understand activities get faster and more accurate as the time goes, as you practice more and more, because of the thicker layering of myelin around those axons. When you move on to your second O, i.e. originating new patterns, the neural pathways that enable the originate function activities get faster and more accurate because of the thickening of the myelin layer around the axons related with the originate activities. And the same happens during your third O, output, where the neural pathways that enable the output activities get faster and more accurate because of thicker layering of myelin around axons. Now, contrary to the common beliefs such as 10,000-hour rule, there is no set time period in which an average person can acquire a particular intelligence. But what research has shown is that once you have acquired this intelligence, this particular intelligence that you wanted to get, once you have acquired it, you need to practice between 200 to 250 hours per month to stay on the top. So that's important. It's not enough just to acquire intelligence, but it's more important to then keep honing it, keep polishing it. And that's where the secret of true intelligence lies. So that was our video for today. I thank you for watching this video till the end. And if you like it, please press the like button. If you really liked it, please don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Until then, bye-bye.